عليكم جميعا. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here with us today in our third roundtable, mainly talking about innovation in general. My name is Naif Ibrahim. I'm the founding partner and the CEO at Ibtechar. We've been focusing mainly in the past 10 years since the inception of Ibtechar on providing a practical innovation solution to the local market. And since last year, we've been reflecting on our journey as a company through what we've been providing, and we've been reflecting as well on the innovation ecosystem in Qatar. And we've been very proud about our journey, but at the same time, very proud about the evolution of the innovation ecosystem in Qatar. And as a reflection, we thought that there is one more step as a responsibility on us that we need to take as a company, where we need to create such an open venue for people to come and discuss innovation in general, to make it a popular culture. So the main purpose of us having these kind of roundtables is to really bring subject matter expert people, sharing their story, sharing their insights, their lesson learned, so as people concerned about the innovation ecosystem, to learn from those expert people. So with that reflection, we kicked off this year a series of roundtables tackling innovation in general. Our first session was in March, which we tackled localizing emerging technology as a topic. The second session was in June, where we tackled the role of innovation spaces, innovation labs in Qatar, and their impact in fostering knowledge-based economy. And today, as we are approaching next month, the World Cup kickoff, we felt it's very important for us to pause at this historical moment and to give some light on the importance of such a national project fostering, delivering innovation. So for that specific reason, today we are hosting our esteemed speakers, Dr. Saoud Abdel Ghani, professor at the Mechanical Engineering Department at Qatar University. He's the mastermind and the engineer behind the cooling system that's been delivered with the mega project in Qatar. His global nickname is Mr. Cool, Dr. Cool. And trust me, he's a cool guy to know. Second, we have engineer Mohammed Al-Atwan Abdul Rahman, a director of facility management at the Supreme Committee. Mohammed Al-Atwan has been with the Supreme Committee for almost 10 years, overseeing different projects from design phase, construction phase, operation phase. But mainly, he's the guy behind Stadium 974, which has been globally recognized as the most sustainable, innovative design in the stadiums, globally speaking. Last but not least, we're having Mr. Abdulrazak Ali, co-founder and CEO of Bonicle. Bonicle provides an innovative product that provides an immersive, inclusive experience to blind people. But before me clearing the stage for our speakers, where they can share their insight about their contribution in this national project, I felt it's very important for us to share our perspective when it comes to the title, Delivering Innovation Through National Project, which is through World Cup. So focusing on that topic, I think there are two elements. There is the innovation and there is the national project. So these are two different components. With innovation, there is this huge question. Why innovation is important to Qatar? This is a very critical, important question that we need to ask. But what is most important is to find our own answer. Why innovation is important to us in Qatar? Innovation could be important to the US, to Singapore, to India. Each country has its own context. Each region has its own context. But for us, why is it important for us in Qatar? So for me to build my belief and kick off my urgency in terms of why is this important to Qatar, I went through a certain journey. Technically, it took me 10 years. It took me 100 years back in the history of the region. Went all the way till the era of pearl economy. I still remember the stories that my father used to tell me about my grandfather, and the stories that my grandfather used to tell me about my great-grandfather. And if I zoom out, I can see the timeline with the fluctuations in our economic lifestyle. So this region 100 years ago was well known for pearl economy, was heavily dependent on pearl economy. The region was one of the most regions that produce a fine, expensive pearl. However, as people are innovating, someone in in East Asia discovered the process of pearl creation, which led into establishing the industry of pearl farming. By that establishment, it just enabled a massive production of pearl with a very cheap price. And that production brought an end to the pearl economy era, which by force enforced people in this region to seek a better mean of lives. People start traveling to India, to Indonesia, Persian, for a better mean of life. However, we were blessed by the discovery of the black gold, the oil, which by default made people moving back to the region as well. And since then, we've been growing economically in a very positive way. However, as we are having this conversation today, talking about innovation, we know that there is a huge investment people are making to find alternative for this kind of energy. And this takes us back to reflecting on the movements that the nations within this region established 10, 15 years ago by moving to knowledge-based economy. And how is that important for us as a region? And yet, with knowledge-based economy, we need also to pause for a while and to understand what does that mean. What is the impact of knowledge creation in creating economy? To really realize and digest that, the way we go about it is just do a comparison, showing facts. Comparing Qatar's revenue last year with Microsoft revenue last year as well. So Qatar did $193.6 billion last year as a revenue, where Microsoft did $168 billion last year. In a comparison, Microsoft did around 85–84% of what Qatar did. A comparison between a nation and one tech company. The fundamental difference in Qatar is still relying heavily on the natural resources, where Microsoft is relying heavily on the human, mankind, intellectual capacity and the ability of creating an economical value as well. So this takes me back to the question, why innovation is important for us? Looking at the timeline and the fluctuation of the timeline, why is it important for us? My simple answer is to ensure a sustainable economical growth and prosperity for generations ahead. This is driven by us understanding our history and being sure that we are not repeating a same pattern in our history as well. Moving forward, I think it's important for us to see the value of the past 15 years investment in building human capital, and how is a national mega project today is being able to accelerate and showcase and foster innovation. And this question will be answered by our esteemed speakers, starting with the Dr. Saud. Tfadal.
Hello, my name is Dr. Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to thank Naif and yourself for being present today for this presentation. So I'll make it light and hopefully with some cartoons, so to blow my surprise for you. So, you know, cooling, because we live in a, traditionally it's a hot and arid area. So cooling is in every walk of life that we deal with. You cannot, for example, sometime in summer where it is humid and muggy and temperature is high, you cannot walk from your car to your office and back. And what is surprisingly, that most of our population in the region, not only in Qatar, they have vitamin D deficiency. Why? Because we don't like the sun. We always either hiding in an office or in a house or in our cars, although we have sunshine outside. But it's part of people more into indoors rather than outdoor. Then COVID came, so then people saw that these type of diseases, they are more prevalent indoors rather than outdoors. So now people even in Europe, they're pushing to live outdoor more, and we are pushing our population to experience outdoor more. Our outdoor environment is hot, is arid, is harsh, but we're trying to use technology and innovation in order to make it more friendly. And when people, for example, go to Qatar and go to the parks in Qatar, and they say, this is a waste of money, you know, a lot of money being wasted, between two quotations, on projects like this. But even the government, when they spend on something like this, because they have a return on the health bill. So the more healthy society, the more productive society will have, and the less the government will pay down the line into the healthcare. So it will all balance out. The productivity of the nation will be better. Going back to the World Cup, my story goes back about 14 years since the bid, and one of the people who were responsible for putting the bid together, God bless his soul, Engineer Hilal Kawari. He was a pioneer of outdoor cooling. He died this year due to cancer, but he's one of the pioneer people. He's one of the few people that I always say I work hard, but when I see Hilal, when I used to see Hilal, he was working harder. I couldn't compete with him with his energy. He will give you a call 2 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, I've got a meeting 7 o'clock in the morning and I need this typical presentation. Can you come to the office 2 o'clock in the morning? Can you come to the office and finalize this presentation for tomorrow's 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock presentation? So he's one of the hardest people, working people that I ever worked with. So just to put that, people were trying to put the bid, competing against big nations, big names in sports. You know, what is Qatar? We always believe Qatar is a small country. Yes, it's small maybe by kilometers square, but it's big by its thinkers, its people, and its heritage. And that's what makes the difference. They said, during the bid, heat will be a challenge. I said, yes, let's turn the challenge into an opportunity. So the guys who are putting the bid together turned something which will be minus on our side to a positive. So when they went to FIFA, they said, hey guys, you know, football is for all, and you know, if you go to Africa, even sometimes, now Europe is getting hotter and hotter, so we'll give you something with a legacy. We'll give you stadiums which are air-conditioned during summer. And then they said, you are going to do this? I say, yes, we are going to do this. Then came back with this promise, and they didn't want to go to a normal design office because it's not a normal design practice. It's not a normal building now. It's a building that has been inheriting through the years since the gladiators' time. A stadium is a stadium. People compete against each other for their lives or against animals, and then fight. And somebody will win, and they will find there is the VVIP area where the Kaiser will be there, and there is the entrance to the players, and people standing, and things like this, all the tiers. So stadiums never changed since ages, since the gladiators' time. But when Qatar then took that bid, they wanted to put something different. And they turned the challenge into an opportunity. And that's one of the things that all the time you need to do as a thinker or an innovator. Then they didn't go the normal route of design. They went to the university. You always look at your resources when you want to do something innovative. Where is your resource? Where is your knowledge base? Your knowledge base is in the university. They went back to the national university, which is Qatar University, and they said, hey guys, we have this challenge. We want people to help. Is there any of the engineering faculty members can help into that? And I happened to be there, and I met Hilal and engineer Yasser, and with them Hassan, and we said, yes, we can do that. They said, okay, what do you need? We said, we need a wind tunnel, we need a simulation facility, we need these softwares, weather files. They said, whatever you need, we will give to the university. So again, the investment into your national resource, the investment that will not just stay today, they will stay today and into the future. And now, with this, I will tell you another story how we helped during the blockade, using the same facilities. So then we started to do 3D printing. We hired PhD students, master's students. So the knowledge was localized in Qatar. And we started to look at this. What is your worst enemy when you design any space. You need to make a micro bubble, small bubble that people live in. Now we live in this bubble, which have physical walls. It's still a bubble, and I control it by putting air through these louvers and take some of that air, because at the end of the day, it's not only temperature we want to control. We want to control temperature. We need to control humidity as well, because we breathe. We put humidity into the bubble we live in. We put more than that. We put sweat. We put hair pieces, skin flakes, all this. While you are sitting, you are shedding skin. Your skin is being shedding. Your hair is being losing. The amount of oxygen will drop. The amount of CO2 will increase, and we're only maybe 50 people in this room. But how about if I've got 80,000 people in something like this? So we looked at all these needs, how we can control them. And at the same time, what is the best temperature that we have to give these people? There are people from Iceland. There are people from Zimbabwe. There will be people from South Africa. There will be people from America. There will be people from Philippines. So what is the best temperature among those? There are males, females, young people, old people, and things like this. Even disabled people, they feel temperature differently from able people. So we looked at providing that amount of temperature for the area which is designated as people with disabled seats. So the control for the temperature is completely different from the control of normal people temperature. This is the way of innovation. We went down the line to do that. In this room, we're controlling the temperature using one set point. Will be like a thermostat where that young gentleman with the white shirt is sitting. So he will come here and say, I want the temperature of this room to be 23 degrees centigrade, and that's it. So we control a physical phenomena, which is temperature. But in our case, we don't control temperature. We control how people perceive heat, how people perceive thermal comfort. So we control temperature, humidity, air movement, and we have cameras to look at what people are wearing. So if somebody with this area, a lot of people wearing shirts, long sleeves, so their control will be different from this area, where a lot of people are in shorts and short sleeves, and so on. So that's another innovation we've done. We have an innovation for the grass. 90 minutes, we are following the players, we are following the football on the grass. So your grass must be healthy, must be strong, and our grass is being seeded in summer, but it's being tricked to think it's winter. So even in our control system, we look at the grass, the microbubble that the grass lives in, we control its temperature, we control the humidity, the ventilation rate to give you a healthy grass. Players themselves, we looked at the players, how the players are sweating. We don't control the field of play temperature. We control mostly the field of play humidity levels in order to make sure that the players, they cool themselves by what? By evaporization of that skin, sweat from the skin. The FIFA official, they will walk the field of play about 90 minutes, 60 minutes before the game to measure that thermal index for the players. We gave the FIFA officials live reading. They don't need to walk the field of play anymore. From their laptops or computers, they can see from our systems how this phenomena that they only measure twice to take a decision. There is no game because it's too hot, or the players have to take a water break, or it's safe to play. So they have in their laptops or in our control room, they can see this measurement live all the time. Our workers, we gave our workers a lot of innovations there. They are the soldiers who put the effort to make sure that we deliver the program 1 year ahead of time. These workers, they work during the summer. So we gave them solar helmets where they cool themselves. They can work 4 hours in the sunshine without being in danger of thermal injury. So we have a solar hat, which is the hard hat. It takes the air from outside and pulls it through a PCM. It's like a wax material inside the worker's head. It will absorb the heat from the air and comes down to cool the worker's face, to give the workers a very safe environment to work. And all these guys, all this knowledge is not only for the stadiums. When the blockade happens, we lost Al-Marai, yeah? So from where did we get the milk? So we got a farm from America, cut and paste, bring the farm, put it in Al-Khor area. What happens to these cows? Cows were in a very good environment, American environment, where they have some sort of ventilation. So we took the barns as they are with the number of cows and we put them in Al-Khor. So the first summer was a little bit harder on the cows. So what's happened then? We said, okay, we can look at how we can cool the cows efficiently using the same tools, CFD simulations and the wind tunnel simulations. And what we've done, redesigned the whole farm, which is the biggest farm now in Qatar, and now they're exporting milk as well, to be adapted to the Qatari environment. So the innovation did not stop on the stadiums, but we've done that to do what, guys? To help people to live better. So at the end, there is the story of the stadiums, especially in the last month, because we're nearing the event, I bored myself by telling the same story. So I think the guys at the SC, they've done a little video. So I will show you that video if you can.
Hello, my name is Dr. Saoud Abdel Ghani, but my friends call me Dr. Cool. I am the engineer behind Qatar's air-conditioned stadiums. My PhD study focused on air conditioning in a car. And I have applied the same theory to our 8 FIFA World Cup stadiums, but obviously on a much bigger scale. Every stadium's cooling technology is different, as they all feature unique designs. For the 7 stadiums we built from scratch, cooling was integrated at the design phase, which made it much easier to implement. Our technology uses a combination of insulation and spot cooling. This means we only cool the areas where people need it, like the pitch and in the stands. This helps to make our systems more environmentally friendly. The foam of each stadium acts as a barrier which contains a cold bubble inside. Our air circulation technique cools the air, filter it, and push it out towards the players and fans. Each stadium is cooled to a comfortable temperature of around 20 degrees. This technology is a game changer for countries with hot summers. It means outdoor sporting facilities can be used all year round. Our technology is also being used in other spaces in Qatar. It is cooling walkways in Qatar and Aspire Park, keeping members of the public cool throughout the summer. Anyone can use this technology. It is unpatented, meaning countries and businesses around the world can take advantage of it. This is World Cup legacy in action, a gift from Qatar to the world.
Thank you, Dr. Saoud. And now it's turn Abdel Razak.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Abdel Razak Ali. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Barnacle. And before I tell you more about Barnacle, let me tell you a little bit of a story or how Barnacle started. So back at university, at Qatar University in 2015, I was rushing to catch a quiz at the university, and I made a car accident. I broke my hand, and I had to join the special needs center at the university. So I would get some help with my exams and writing down and everything. During that period, I met a student called Hamad, who is a blind student. He used to ask for help for basically writing content in Arabic specifically to Braille and translating it to Braille. And he kept talking about the difficulties he would go through every day to get the content accessible or in an accessible format. And here, the engineering mindset kind of kicked in. I'm a background in computer science. So I'm like, let's work on this. How can we solve that? How hard is it to have like a Braille Kindle, for example, or a glove, or something that would be able to translate in real time to Braille? And from here, the journey started. I started to spend more time with the blind community and understand how they live their life. How do they learn math? How do they learn music? Or is there Arabic music, Arabic Braille, English Braille, or just Braille? And at some point, I had to stop, and I'm like, the problem is completely fundamental in here. It's not about getting access to content. It's actually that Hamad was the first person I ever meet who's blind in my life. I'm 21 years old, and he's the first blind person I ever meet. This community, I have never interacted with them at all. The problem is inclusion in the society. And he's in the same university. He takes the same classes. I have never seen him in a classroom. So that was the main problem. So fast forward to what we have now. Barnacle is a Braille entertainment platform for the blind that gives them access to educational content, productivity apps, and games, where they would be able to do that inclusively. It's a very small device that connects to your smartphone, iPhone or tablet, for example. And you have a library of applications for different use cases. It could be an educational app, a productivity app, or even a game. So let's start off with the most exciting category, games. How can a blind person have some fun with his friends and family in an inclusive way? I would show one of the most popular games that we have. We call it Bo's Run, where basically our dog called Bo, he's a robotic guide dog, and you need to help him to avoid obstacles and become a guide dog that would help his blind owner. The point is here is basically to use Barnacle and help Bo avoid obstacles. So you would be using Barnacle to play to have an immersive experience and take the right action by jumping over an obstacle, gliding under it, or just avoiding it by going right or left. Here, the most exciting question is basically how can a blind person play this without looking at the screen? So what's happening behind the screen, behind the scenes in here is basically we're using tactile, haptics, sounds, and motion to have an immersive gaming experience for the blind community. So here, the dots is basically showing the obstacle in front of you in tactile. So you're touching it. You know what's in front of you. Now, when should I jump? What if I jump too early and then I would land and crash again and it's a game over? So the haptics will help you. Once you're getting too close to an obstacle, you would feel a vibration. That means that you need to take an action quickly. What we're doing, I mean, the first question that I will always get is basically, why the visual aspect then? Again, it's about inclusion. If you are, yes, the person playing it might be blind, but he's living in a society, in a sighted society. He's living with his parents who wants to see what's happening, who wants to engage with them. He's living with his sighted peers at schools, at university, at workspaces. So it's very important to make sure that the visual is in there. This way, they would be able to play inclusively with their friends, whether they're sighted or blind, and it will be completely equally competitive. One more important thing is here is basically games, when they're dependent on the tactile, they need to take the action very quickly, and that will improve the finger sensitivity, which is the first step to learn Braille. And that will take us to the next category, education. How can Barnacle help a blind person learn Braille? In any language, of course. So we have a library of educational apps. I would just showcase the simplest apps that we have and how Barnacle could be used in that. So Barnacle would be connected to your, again, smart device. And you would be able to go through the alphabet.
This character is represented by the dot 1. B. This character is represented by dots 1 and 2. C. This character is represented by dots 1 and 4.
Yeah. So the Braille will always be under your fingertip, and the audio will tell you what you have under your fingertip. This is the letter A and how it's represented. And again, the screen is always showing all the information. So a parent would be able to help his kid throughout his educational journey, even if they don't know Braille. They would be using their own language to tell them, yeah, this is the letter A and this is the letter B, and they have all the information on the screen. And once you learn the alphabet, you can go to the spelling. How can I use that to basically write a sentence or a word, or to read and write?
Morning.
Morning, capital M. O. R. N.
So again, you would just say a word or a sentence, and then it will be represented under your fingertip in Braille, and you would be moving your finger as if you're moving your finger over a Braille paper. And this way, it's always telling you what letter is under your fingertip, and you would have a personal tutor with you at home. And then the last and maybe the boring category is basically how to get work done. How can Barnacle be used in a productive way? So I'll just showcase one example, which is basically how to go through an Excel sheet, how a blind person can deal with an Excel sheet. Here, Barnacle would be able to the user would be able to use Barnacle to navigate through the columns, go down a column, find the highest grade, and then basically skim through the row, and it's always showing under his fingertip the Braille value of that cell. We have just launched Barnacle back in August, and in September, I was very proud that we've held the first inclusive esports tournament in the world here in Qatar in the Education City. I would leave you with this brief news coverage for the tournament. The goal in here is basically to have an inclusive game tournament where everyone would be available, whether sighted gamers, blind gamers, and that will help open the conversation, start the conversation, and help with the inclusion and raising awareness. We want to have them integrated in our society, in our classrooms, in our workspaces, in our game centers.
This esports tournament recently tested Barnacle's abilities.
What we're trying to do is basically include the blind players within the gaming community locally here in Qatar.
Ahmed says it felt great to play amongst the larger community.
It's the true meaning of integration, like to take part of the mainstream events and to actually get engaged with the real gamers. So yes, it's definitely fun, and I'm truly looking forward to see what more can be done with this tiny little device.
There have been challenges along the way for Barnacle, including trying to manufacture a new product during a pandemic. However, the team received a massive sign of confidence in the technology and has been tasked with converting digital content into Braille during the upcoming World Cup. Back at QSTP, Ahmed, who is a Braille teacher, can envision the day Barnacle becomes a regular part of a blind person's daily routine.
The challenges we face here in Qatar are being faced by the blind community all over the world. We're looking ahead for the future. We're looking for more improvements, for more inclusion in the society.
And he believes the accessibility gap will continue to close with more technological advancements, leveling the playing field.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Abdelrazak. Thank you. Engineer Mohammed.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Naif, and thanks to everyone for being here. I'm glad to be representing the Supreme Committee today with a presentation that we will go through our readiness towards the first World Cup in the Middle East and the Arab world. So until we have the presentation on the screen, just to give a quick brief introduction, this is Mohammed Al-Atwan. I'm an engineer as a background, and I've done my higher educations in the UK. I've got executive MBA in 2018. So I started the journey with the Supreme Committee back in 2012, in which it's almost 10 years. It was an interesting journey, and we are looking forward to host the first World Cup in the Middle East. So we'll go over the slides until we have it on the screen. So the Supreme Committee is the main organization that was tasked to deliver or have the required infrastructure for the World Cup ready and completed on time in coordination with the main stakeholders in the country, achieving what we've been promising as an amazing World Cup since the bid. So Qatar have won the bid back 2010. So the journey was almost 12 years, and we were lucky that we had this longer, let's say, period to have the required project being delivered in a way that would serve the legacy that we have aimed for out of this tournament. So the main vision and mission of the tournament being hosted here in Qatar was to use the power of football and mega events such as the World Cup to accelerate the delivery of the National Vision 2030, as well as to showcase and to share Qatar's identity and rich culture with the world through the experience or amazing experience as we promised as we promised in the World Cup. So the hosting concept was based on a few aspects that were the core of everything we've planned for in terms of the planning, design, and even the delivery. So the tournament as the first ever compact tournament in which, due to the geographic nature of Qatar, the innovative sustainability aspects that were embedded within the design of all venues and infrastructure required for such mega event. Again, Qatar, as the safest ranked country in the world, we believe this would be the safest tournament as well. And again, a family-oriented tournament with activation that will be offered and be available for the spectator during and before the tournament period. And again, legacy, in which the main projects were legacy-driven, which is the main aim of hosting such mega event here in Qatar. So as I said, this will be the most compact tournament in the history of the World Cup since 1930, in which the longest distance between two venues or two stadiums will be 75 kilometers from Al Bayt Stadium heading to Al Janoub and Al Wakra. And then the shortest will be 5 kilometers between Al Rayyan Ahmed bin Ali Stadium and Education City Stadium. Well, we've been promising that this World Cup will be the most sustainable World Cup, in which we've had 5, let's say, pillars that we've worked on the basis that we've embedded the sustainability within the design and even the construction of our venues, and we had more than 70 initiatives in line with the 2030 national vision, in which sustainability is one of the main pillars as well. Going to the main venues, so during the bid book back 2010, we had 12 venues proposed for the World Cup. However, the hosting nation has the right to revise the plans and revise the legacy aspects, in which we've consulted the local authority league and Qatar Football Association with the required infrastructure for the local league, which is the main aspect that we believe that would be available for any future tournaments or any sporting facility that would be used within Qatar. So the total number of venues was reduced down to 8, in which we have built 7 venues, and one stadium was have went through an extensive renovation, which is Khalifa International Stadium. Again, with almost 39 days to the main tournament that we've been looking forward to have, we've completed all the venues 1 year ahead of the tournament, which is again a great achievement that we haven't experienced from other tournaments. We've been to South Africa, we've been to Brazil, Russia, and we've been working even on those tournaments as part of observation programs or even secondment programs, and we've never seen venues ready ahead of the tournament by such period of time. So we were lucky that we had most of the venues ready last year, and we hosted Arab Cup, which was the last test event that we had here in Qatar, in which 6 venues were tested and used for that event. So we have Khalifa International Stadium with 40,000 seats in terms of the capacity, and this venue will remain post-event with the same capacity as it would be the Qatar's national stadium, and will host 7 matches up to round of 16 and third place match, and was reopened back in 2017. Al Janoub in Al Wakra city will host 7 matches up to round of 16 with a capacity of 40,000. And the legacy of this venue would be the home of Al Wakra Sports Club, and the capacity will be reduced down to 20,000 post-tournament. Education City and Ahmed bin Ali Stadium with the same capacity as 40,000 seats will be used up to round of 16, Ahmed bin Ali, and quarter final for Education City. The capacity as well will be reduced down to 20,000 to suit the legacy use and the local league needs. At Thumama, again with the same capacity, which is the minimum capacity required by FIFA to host FIFA World Cup matches, 40,000, and the legacy will be reduced in terms of the capacity down to 20,000 seats. Albeit 60 to 65,000 net capacity, which will host the opening of the World Cup and hosted the opening and the final of Arab Cup, with a reduced capacity down to 28 to 30,000 seats, in which we'll have part of the stadium converted to a boutique hotel, as the skyboxes have the ability to be converted to hotel rooms, which are ready to be used, in which there will be minimum infrastructure or construction required to do the conversion. And a Lusail Stadium, which I believe was missed from the slide, but we have another slide to talk about Lusail, which will be the largest venue with the 80,000 capacity, 80,000 seats. And then the legacy of this venue would be a non-sporting facility that can be converting to other components that suits Lusail City Master Plan. And Stadium 974, which is the stadium that we will be discussing in more details, which we believe the most innovative design and the most innovative stadium across all the World Cup venues with a capacity of 40,000 seats, and considers the first ever stadium that was designed, built to be fully dismantled after the use of the venue for the World Cup, using certified shipping container, which is again a new concept that we've invested in to showcase and to set a new benchmark in the sporting industry, as we've experienced from other and previous tournaments, that some venues were built without clear and straightforward legacy plans for those venues post events. So those are some photos of the venues, in which the timeline we've been, as I mentioned, working since 2012, let's say. So the planning stage was kind of 4 years, in which most of the paperwork was done, and we had the outlines, we had the brief, especially for the design. So most of those venues were inspired by the traditions and the culture, reflecting the rich Qatari culture and the architectural language that we have, and designed for the future, and with the most innovative technologies and systems embedded, such as the cooling that Dr. Saud have spoken about. So Thumama Stadium 974, which is considered the only waterfront stadium, and we'll go through the details of this stadium. However, the planning or the sustainability legacy aspects, we believe, were met prior to constructing the stadium, in which the location used to be an industrial location, as it used to be the headquarters of Qatar Petroleum, named as Qatar Energy currently. And when we took over the site back in 2014, we went through an extensive environmental and sustainability activities, in which we've done a treatment and decontamination for soil and water, as there were a few oil tanks and a petrol station over there. A lot of buildings were demolished, and most of the demolished material were recycled for the construction activities within other venues. Also, it was a home of more than 800 trees. So we've had to relocate and transplant those trees to the Supreme Committee Nursery, in which those trees are now being replanted within the precinct of each venue as part of the beautification exercise that we are doing for all the World Cup venues. And then in terms of the legacy of the location, as this is the concept of the stadium reflecting the temporary nature of the stadium, and after dismantling the venue, the site will be available for any future development with the infrastructure that will be left over in terms of a primary substation that was built by Kahrama, a metro station connecting the stadium with other venues that will be kept for any future development, as well as the Corniche development and the beach that we will be offering to the spectator and fans during the World Cup as part of the fan activities and fan zones. So again, using shipping container, in which we've used 974 containers, and those are certified shipping containers. So we invested a lot during the design stage to have the flexibility in the design and to have more flexibility in the legacy options that we can have post-event, so the stadium can be fully dismantled and then we can rebuild it somewhere else, either in Qatar or a different country in the world, or we can build smaller venues with the same components, so 20,000 seats stadia or venues at 2 different locations, or we can build 4 venues at multiple locations, or we can just repurpose those shipping containers for shipping purposes, as we are maintaining the certification and the steel structure, which is the main second component within this design, can be recycled, in which we are using approximately 30,000 tons of steel. So we believe that this is the most innovative solution and design, and would set a new benchmark, as I mentioned, in the sporting industry, that countries that are willing to host such mega events as the World Cup can use the same concept, in which they avoid the white elephant that they call, that venues with the scale of 40,000 seats with no clear legacy post events. Al Bayt Stadium with a unique design. This is considered the largest or the biggest tent in the world. So it reflects the Bedouin tent, as it's called, Al Bayt al-Shi'ar. So the name reflects the tent name, Al Bayt Stadium. This is again a unique and innovative design, a huge venue. The development is around 1 million square meter, so it's a 1 kilo by 1 kilometers, in which we've done a new development, a new destination in Al Khor, with a greenery and landscape around the stadium, with 10 kiosks and 10 restaurants, and then with the facility that would serve the community and the community living in Al Khor and Al Dhakhira. And this venue will host the opening, inshallah, on 20th of November next month. Lusail Stadium, which is the largest venue in Lusail City, will host the final of the 2022 FIFA tournament. Again, with a capacity of 80,000, the venue will be repurposed and used as a non-sporting facility afterwards. So some part of the stadium will be converted to clinics. Some part of the venue will be used as schools or other facilities that would serve Lusail City master plan. So again, Lusail Stadium was the only venue that was never used last year, but we've had the chance to test the stadium in a couple of events. The last one was the Super Cup back in September last month. So again, almost 39 days ahead of the World Cup and the opening. So this is the match schedule. So this is how I will end my presentation. So I'll invite you to go to FIFA website and go for the tickets. Ticket sale is still ongoing, and more information or releases will be announced in the coming week in terms of higher card application and the ease of access and entry to Qatar. So hopefully we'll have a better understanding of what we are expecting and what would be the coming in the next month ahead of the tournament that we've promised to be, inshallah, the most amazing tournament in the history of the World Cups. Thank you all.
Thank you all. We're going to take just a couple of minutes to set the stage for the panel discussion, and then we're going to kick off the panel discussion. Hi again. We're going to start the panel discussion. I was telling the speakers just a minute ago, and mashallah, looking at their presentations, they just left me out of questions, يعني discussing their journey. It's very impressive, very inspiring, and I think it's very valuable to see the amount of effort that's been invested and been injected in the past 10 years developing what you guys managed to develop. So I think as a kickoff, mashallah, picking up على Dr. Saoud's presentation from the first interaction with the Supreme Committee team all the way to today, I think that was very inspiring. That was very, very motivated as well. But I think we would like to dive a little bit deeper into really understanding the scale of effort. So looking at Dr. Saoud, Dr. Kool, with the PhD research in AC system with cars, and today we are developing AC system that's covering 40,000 till 80,000 audience capacity. This is a huge scale up in the solution itself. So if we just can take us through the journey of scaling up that kind of solution, and how is it relevant to the innovation process as a process?
We teach our students in the university that an innovator who's somebody who's not just thinking in the problem they have to link whatever they've seen in life, and it grows with experience. So in my case, I mean, my PhD was sponsored by Ford Motor Company, and it was about thermal comfort of passengers and the driver and passengers in a Mondeo car. And for me, when I looked at the stadium, I thought, yeah, this is a car, it's just big. And instead of having 4 people, it's 40,000 people. And again, you know, instead of having a window, you have an oculus on the roof, but still the main elements are there. So you have solar radiation, you have external weather, and from there you can scale it up to the other one. You still, in your car, there is an insulation. You have insulation on the roof, you have insulation on the door, and it's a thermal insulation, insulation on the floor, and this is exactly what we have in the stadium. And we have insulation all over because we wanted to make sure that these stadiums are run as sustainable as possible. Even how we generate the energy. I mean, people we have nowadays, sadly, a lot of people in the media, they put a lot of negative feedback without knowing about the energy utilization in these stadiums. And we always invite them and said, look guys, it's an open patent source. Come and learn. We'll open for you our books. We'll take you and make you sit in the energy stations, and you see how much energy that we're using, and it is cheaper than running the same volume. If you have an atrium in airport, it's cheaper to run the stadium, the ball of the stadium, than that, because we don't cool the whole volume. We're only cooling where people are. So the innovation aspect is there. The control as well. For the first time ever in the air conditioning system, we are controlling people, how they feel temperature rather than temperature as a physical phenomena. So a lot of innovation concept that came along, and again, when you have an innovation process, you need somebody to believe in that innovation process. And we were happy that the government itself was pushing for this, and they supported this, and they used the university as the springboard to deliver these innovation points, which are now proven and for everybody to see. And again, the SC and our executive management, they chose not to make patents for this, to leave it outsourced. So anybody can now look into the internet and write how the cooling system works in Qatar. They will find a lot of scientific journal papers in a scientific. These are peer-reviewed journal papers in the best professional engineering magazines, talking about how the system works, about its sustainability factor, and it's been vetted, and it's in the it's out for people to learn, and that's to tell people that, you know, you cannot just say sustainability, use it as a weapon. No, yeah, you come and learn, And if they are really, really within the field, they will know how much effort was done there.
Doctor, you mentioned a very interesting point, honestly, the IP thing and keeping it open. So how do you see that's aligned with the commercial side of things? يعني, what was the main purpose of keeping that open?
By the way, I mean, when we have the blockade, His Highness the Emir said Qatar used, I think he put it as al-Quwa al-Na'ma, which is the soft power. So 2022 is one of these, is a soft power. I mean, if you are a company, and Qatar not a company, it's a big country, so they're using already this open source in order for people to learn. So it's service purpose. You open this, you give it, because more and more now countries are seeing hot weather, and I will not be surprised if after the 2022, America, Mexico, most of European countries, if they want to yet play early their legal games, they need to look at our experience and learn and implement it there. There will be a lot of sporting facility which will be air-cooled coming out of this, led by Qatar in the region and within especially Europe and America.
Abdul 7 years on Bonacle. It started with an accident, and that sparked Bonacle as an idea all the way till it's a very innovative product today. So what is the most innovative aspect out of Bonacle? But then how was the process that you went through to develop Bonacle to what is it today?
Yeah, so I would start with the process. So yeah, it was an accident, and then basically I started questioning, like, how hard is it to solve such a problem? I didn't have any solution back then. It was just a clear problem, and like anyone else, you're running after a good problem to solve, a problem that you're willing to commit for the next 5 or 10 years to solve. That was basically the beginning. And I started looking into basically what would be the best way to do. Is it a Kindle for the blind? So a tablet that has pens and you can read whatever and giving them access. And then I started interacting more with the blind community and learning more about how they live their life. I remember that lady in New York, she was talking about the struggle she had to go through to teach her blind daughter throughout her life. So they had to move from Texas, somewhere in Texas, to New York because there is access to assistive technology and teachers for the blind. She was like the simplest life tasks she had to learn herself. She had to ask and interact more with the blind community, including, for example, how can a blind lady deal with her monthly cycle? She was like, that's a conversation I would need to have with my daughter, but I don't know how to deal with it. And she had to learn more. So the problem was quite obvious. It's not about accessing information. It's about the inclusion in the society. I only got onto it because of an accident. That's how I met Hamad. And that mother only dealt with it when she was blessed with a blind daughter. So when I first started, I was like, okay, not a Kindle, definitely not a Kindle. It's just a bunch of dots, so anyone around me doesn't know what I'm reading. I cannot interact with my friend. I'm like, how do I solve such a problem or this equation? How do I don't know. So we had to make it inclusive in the society. So we switched to a glove, actually, where basically you would be wearing a glove, and inside the glove there are pins under your fingertip, and whatever text you touch, it will be represented under your fingertip in Braille. And as you move over the text, it will change. This way, the word is converted into Braille in real time for you. It sounds brilliant. It sounds very innovative. That's like 3 patents. But here, when it comes to the innovation process, it's very important to validate the feasibility and how practical the solution is. So I digged into the feasibility, which was the easy part of it. Okay, how can we actually implement such a thing technically? And we did. And we got a prototype that is functional. Ugly, but functional. And we went to test it. Is it actually usable? And then, since that was very obvious and very important for Barnacle because we are not the end user, so we went to the blind community and were like, can you wear it and read the text? And they couldn't. Why? Because they were like, it's perfect, but I need to brush my finger over the dots. I do that little movement over the dots to tell which letter it is. I need to wiggle a little bit. Now you're attaching the dots to my finger. Whenever I move my finger, it moves with me. So your solution doesn't work. Scratch everything and start back from scratch. So it was quite important whenever you're innovating and working on something completely new, these 2 points were completely important. And there is also one very important aspect, and it was very obvious while testing here in Qatar. People are too nice. The users are too nice. Like, what do you think of the solution? They would be like, it's a great initiative, and they wouldn't tell you the blunt feedback that you need to go back and re-scratch and start over. So it was very important the way you validate your idea. Sitting in there and asking the right question, like, what would you change? Because I can see you're struggling. You're not really reading as smooth as you can. So what would you change in this design? And they would be like, maybe the dots should vibrate. And here, never listen to the user solution, but the problem. So take a note in here that, they want the brushing. So they couldn't brush their finger. Not the solution. Definitely the vibration would be very annoying. So just try to take the implicit problem in there. And they were like, what else? They were like, maybe not a glove. A fingertip would be enough. And here you would take a note that, yeah, a glove would stand out in public, and this is something they don't want. And again, the purpose is inclusion in the society. And imagine wearing a glove in a 40 degrees Celsius outside. That's not really practical. So we had to go back and forth. Innovation is quite iterative. You would never get it outright the first time. You have to keep getting back and forth and doing it right and listening to your customers. The most innovative part in here is basically, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to create specific technology for the blind. The available technology right now, they're quite isolated because they're designed specifically for the blind without taking into consideration that they live in a sighted society. So the Braille tablet is a good example. Yes, you're helping the blind getting access, but you're segregating them in the society, and their colleagues and family doesn't know what they're doing. Yeah.
It's very interesting to see Dr. Saoud's perspective toward innovation in the context of the government versus Abdelrazik's perspective toward innovation in the startup. Yeah, there are two different metrics looking at innovation. Here it's about the soft power and the impact and the legacy, but there it's about the visibility and practicality of things. It's very interesting. So moving to Mohammed Al-Atwan. So I had a prep session with Mohammed just to prep for this discussion. And it took us 45 minutes. Mohammed was elaborating on the details of the Stadium 974. But then I felt, okay, Mohammed, can we cover that in 1 hour? He was like, okay, it's up to you. You manage that. يعني. There is a tremendous wealth of knowledge and experience out of the past 10 years, but I think we're going to touch base on the most important aspect. So reflecting back on our previous conversation, looking into the different phases that each stadium goes through, from preparation and observation, then design, then construction, then operation, then post-event. I want to focus on the preparation and observation. So can we elaborate more on that? And how is that added value to each stadium, to each project?
Well, yeah, as we were discussing that day, the planning stage and the design stage were, I would say, the most important stage that we've took some time to freeze, in which the planning for the venues, which we've been calling as a precinct instead of standing alone venues. So we wanted to have a wider impact, a wider development in the country and the locations where those stadiums were selected, rather than having a stadium as a standalone venue and then there is no other benefits to the neighborhood and the community around those locations. So we started with some sort of community engagement process as well as survey. So we were going to majlises, we were going to people living around the locations that were selected as an initial or the first stage. looking and checking what are their needs. So from one location to the other, the needs were totally different. So if you go to Al Janoub Stadium, the components within the precinct are totally different than the components at Al Bayt Stadium, for example, where we started to develop the brief for those venues, and those was the main outlines that we've shared with the designers when we started the design stage or the design development for each venue. So we started calling those venues as Al Bayt Stadium and its precinct rather than Al Bayt Stadium. So I'll take Al Bayt Stadium as an example, in which the components that the local or the community have asked for to serve their needs and to be part of the legacy that will be offered for them in terms of the landscape that they are, the Al Khor city lacks of public parks, and then they were asking for jogging and cycling paths similar to Aspire Park, which is surrounding Khalifa Stadium. Again, we're using Khalifa Stadium as a benchmark to develop the brief of all other venues. So they wanted a hotel. So we embedded the hotel idea within the design, in which the skyboxes within the stadium can be converted into a hotel room with minimal construction activities post-event. So we have the sofas or the seating arrangement within the skybox as a sofa bed, in which the bed is already there. So it's a matter of just opening the bed side and have it ready as a hotel room, and with a pantry and a toilet with a shower already constructed on site. So those, the planning stage and those ideas were, I would assume, the main or the critical stage that outlined the design and even was driving the design development and the construction as we intended, or we believe that this tournament should be legacy driven instead of having such facilities with the FIFA requirement only for 1 month, rather than have it for the Qatar's benefit. And as I mentioned, we've used the tournament as a catalyst to accelerate the delivery of the national vision, which the main projects were aligned with the national vision more or less.
Just picking on that, Abdurrahman. So basically, we're talking about the phase of planning and observation. Has this phase been implemented in the previous tournaments, or this is something that got introduced by the Supreme Committee into this?
Well, we were lucky that we won the bid 12 years ahead of the tournament time, and that luxury of period of time even was again a benefit that we've used to our side. From previous tournaments, as I mentioned, we've been to South Africa, Brazil, and Russia. We've seen some legacy plans embedded from day one. However, we've seen venues that were built in cities that has a sports club playing in the third division, let's say. So the legacy was not the main driving factor, even in terms of the delivery or even the design of the stadium. That was the main focus or the main item that we've focused on during the planning stage. I'll use 974 Stadium as an example. It was the last stadium started the construction. So from clearing the site from QP buildings with environmental and sustainability aspects that we have had to do in terms of decontamination and clearing the site of even hazardous materials such as asbestos that we found within those buildings. We took greater time to explore the idea that we got from management in terms of the temporary stadium or the concept that we were working to achieve in terms of the main objective of having a stadium that can be utilized for the World Cup and then be fully demountable and dismantled. And we've used the demountability factor that we've been promising since day one during the bid, that we will have seats donated to other countries. However, we went extreme in 974 design, that we wanted to, let's say, go with the innovative design, innovative solution, that we worked with the designer, which is a great designer, Mark Fenwick, developing the concept or defining the component that would lead us to achieve the objective of having a temporary stadium. So we took the design stage and we went with the designer through brainstorming sessions, multiple design workshops, in which we concluded that exercise selecting the containers, which are easy to move and transport, to fulfill FIFA requirements. So we tried our best to have FIFA requirement embedded within those containers. So if you go to Stadium 974, you would see 3 containers joined together to form a toilet, 3 containers joined together to form a skybox, 3 containers joined together to form even offices or back of house spaces that are required for the operation of such facility. So we've done a great study with the designer, in which we've achieved the objective of having a temporary stadium that can be used for a mega event such as the World Cup, and then to showcase the engineering and the commitments that we had since day one, with the ability of dismantling the full thing and repurposing the components to whatever legacy plans that can be decided. So we've done our best to have those venues, legacy driven and sustainability and innovation aspects embedded within the design since day one, since the planning stage, within those briefs that we've passed to the designers, which have been reflected, I would say, on the projects that have been completed so far.
Interesting. Dr. Saud, 14 years ago, Supreme Committee knocked your door with people believing in a vision. You were cool enough, crazy enough to pitch, and now we can scale up the solution on a stadium scale. But from 14 years ago till today, there has been huge progress, and specifically you mentioned something about localizing. So there is a lot has to do with the design, a lot has to do with the fabrication, implementation, testing. So how did that went in terms of experience?
Maybe I'll give you one example. You know, these nozzles we use to push the air to just where the touch line is and cool the field of play. The material that we selected is just for the SC, because these are used outdoor. We don't want any condensation to happen. They should be plastic. What type of plastic do you use? If you use plastic ABS, they go under the sun, they change the color. You want the color to have some its fading qualities to be controlled. So even the type of the material, the mold, all this was done in Qatar. The design was done in Qatar. The selection of the material was done in Qatar, and even just to be certified, because at the end of the day, you need to convince the contractor to take the liability. Contractor will pick a standard product, but for us, this product is non-standard. So we went to international labs to test it and certify it according to the international standards. So you went from Qatar as a local product to be internationally certified, to be used by contractor in an international building like the stadium, because the stadium is a showcase that will host people from all over. So such a small product, and this must be as fast as possible in order not to delay the whole program. I mean, we're proud that we finished 1 year ahead of time, and this was all these little products that will go into the big product, and each one should be certified and tested, and the contractor should take that as part of his liability. So that was the innovation on that project. So not just in the product, it's in the material of the product, its fading qualities, UV light stability, and how it performed. So it was really tight, but at the same time innovative.
Abdelrazak, picking up on your journey developing Bonacle. So just reflecting on what were the main challenges you faced through the process of developing Bonicle up till today?
I think the main problems, or basically the main challenges I personally faced and the team faced, is basically getting ourselves familiar with the blind community and digging into the little details. Would have never noticed the brushing effect ourselves. We had to go back and forth. And we had to get people believing in us that we would keep pushing and we would be as resilient as possible till we actually find something that works. And so we started off with the tablet, then the glove, then a stylus, so something like the Apple Pencil. And yet again, that failed. So multiple iterations. And we were lucky, honestly, that we were dealing with such a supportive blind the community. The blind community were very supportive with us. Like, we always say that Bonicle was created for the blind community by the blind community. They really helped us shaping Bonicle. When we first started, it was mainly about access and mainly about text. But then when I used the stylus, form factor of the stylus prototype, I was testing it with a blind programmer who was teaching programmer and data analytics. The moment she used it, she was like, okay, hold on. You have a motion sensor in here. So if I move Bonicle from point A to point D, it will detect the movement and it will change the letters under my fingertip. And I'm like, yeah. She was like, that could be a perfect braille ruler. Think about it. I will move it from point A to point B, and instead of changing the letters, just measure the distance and show it under my fingertip in braille. How many centimeters is that? We don't have such a thing. And that's a challenge. You would have never noticed it. She was like, this is perfect. I will program that myself. I can develop it. And that's exactly when we changed from a device that gives you access to information to a platform that you can develop your own applications. And that's exactly where we're heading. We want the blind community to develop their own solutions. One of the simplest apps that we have, yet one of the most impactful, is a counter app. A counter app. So you would be holding Bonicle and clicking a button, and it will keep incrementing and showing the number on their fingertip. They were like, think about it, that's a big challenge. For us to teach our kids counting, or for us to count, we would need a jar, marbles, and then you would put and then count how many marbles are in the jar. This is very portable, very handy. And then people are like, I would be able to count. That's a tally counter. I would be able to teach blind community how to count. So 1, 2, 3, whatever. And here in the Middle East, they were like, that's a perfect misbah for me. For tasbih. Just I can keep saying again, in the name of Allah or whatever. So it was shaped by the blind community, and as long as the biggest challenge was basically to get the community believing in you, that you're committed to the problem and you will take their feedback seriously and go back and change. And this is something that is quite challenging because a lot of people in the assistive technology, they wouldn't test properly with the community before going out there and say, okay, we're creating this innovative product for the deaf or the blind or people with physical disability. So gaining that trust was basically the hardest point. And then the ball started rolling much better, and we kept getting feedback until today. We get the blind community contributing to that platform, including a blind lady creating a platform or an app to teach Braille music for Bonicle, where basically you would move Bonicle over the notes. It will show you the note under your fingertip in Braille, and you would hear each note. So this way you would learn each note, how it's represented in Braille.
Interesting. Abdurrahman, looking at the innovative aspects of the design with the different stadiums and focusing on the execution on the ground, I would assume highly you guys involved local contractors to deliver that. And reflecting on Dr. Saoud's comment regarding the readiness, around specs, around liability, so there is a lot of uncertainty when it comes when dealing with the new stuff. So how did you witness that, and how did you see the performance of the local companies really being able to deliver what have you delivered?
Well, as you said, and as Dr. Said have briefly mentioned earlier about investing in the locals and using local resources. So all of the stadium projects were led by local contractors. So 7 of them were built by a JV between a local contractor and international contractor, in which the main objective that the international contractor would share the experience with the local contractor on such mega events, especially with the timeline that we had. It's a tight schedule, and we have a set deadline that we had to work backward. However, for 974, with its innovative design and concept, management decision was that we go with the local contractor to give them the opportunity to solely deliver such unique projects. So it was built by a local contractor, Hamad bin Khalid Contracting, and Hamad bin Khalid Contracting was the same lead contractor on Lusail Stadium project with a Chinese contractor. So I would say that the experience that they've gained from Lusail project was transferred to Stadium 974 project, and this was reflected even in the construction quality and the construction activities and sequence that were defined very well, especially with the unique design and unique concept. So we had a challenge, to be honest, with the project starting phase, in which we had to have some expertise supporting the local contractor and defining and developing the construction sequence using those shipping containers and the sequence where the steel elements will be installed, and then we fix the container on their final position, and we go on up all the way to the roof. Also, the concept itself, it was a challenging concept in which we had some challenges to convince everyone in terms of higher authorities, management, FIFA, using shipping container to have a FIFA compliant stadium, as this is considered the first time that containers are being used to build a sporting facility. So containers are now being used frequently for F&B and some accommodation options. However, for sporting facilities, 974 is considered the first ever stadium being built using shipping containers. So even with the unique concept, I would say the local contractor have showed a great experience and knowledge transfer from the international JV contractor from other project, and alhamdulillah, successfully we managed to finish the project, which was the last project started the construction. So everyone was worried that early 2019 we didn't yet install any container on its final position or erect even the steel structure on Ras Abu Abud area. So we started fixing or installing the container on their final position in November 19, and we managed to finish the full steel structure all the way to the roof with all containers on their final position March 21. So it was less than a year and a half to build such facility, which is again a great achievement, I would say, to the project team and to the contractor.
Excellent. Dr. Saoud, you mentioned in your presentation the other applications for the cooling system. Just reflecting on the project overall, it's about legacy, it's about benchmarking, it's about stating, pushing boundaries, and yet we are hearing there are other applications that took place before the closing of the event itself. So can you take us through these different examples? But more than that, what do you see in terms of forecasted other applications for the same system as well?
So we start with agriculture. Agriculture is very important for us. I mean, you can be a rich country, but suddenly due to whatever geopolitical situation, then you cannot import from outside. So what are you going to do? Are you going to drink and breathe gas, or you need at the end of the day to have some sort of food security within the country. And food security was top of the agenda of the government in Qatar long ago before the blockade, not just when the blockade came, but the blockade came to highlight that. So we started to look at, if we want to grow, we can grow vegetables during the summer, but how much cooling you are going to put in there? So maybe one kilogram of tomatoes can cost about 25 Qatari riyal during the summer because of the amount of cooling, the amount of water they are going to invest. So it's cheaper for me to bring it from neighboring countries or from Europe. But if I want the farmers to have that facility and have that sort of food security in the 5 strategic crops we have, like tomato, capsicum, cuisine, and cucumber, and aubergine. These are deemed as the 5 staples that people can live on it for a long time. They can provide the amount of minerals and vitamins that are needed. That's why we call them the 5 strategic crops. So at the end of the day, the farmer needs to make profit. And you need to make sure that subsidies is not heavily being done for these farmers, because you want the market to shape. Yes, you can, as a government, you can give subsidy, subsidize electricity, subsidize water, but for how long? So we wanted to give the farmers new type of greenhouses. So now, from the same material, we build our plenums in the stadium, which is sandwich panels. We have now what we call Qatar 4.0 greenhouse, which is a container, but with a roof with glasses that will track the sun since the morning till the sun goes away, and just beam that amount of needed sunshine to the crop. And we managed to drop the how much we can spend on 1 kilogram of tomatoes from 25 riyals in cooling down to nearly 0.2 of that is 5 riyals during the mid of summer. If 50 degrees outside, you still can produce that in a cheap way, using the same technology as the stadiums. If you go to Qatar, it's the same. I mean, now there are a lot of new areas are coming, like Al Mahal Island in Lusail, like for example, the Lusail Business District. These are cooled outdoor areas for food and beverage. People can go and enjoy their life, and they dine and socialize even in the middle of the summer, as if in a very relaxed environment. So we are trying to get the cooling into industries in Qatar, that then they can sustain themselves and make profit for benefit for the locals and for the society.
Abdulrazak, looking at this national project, so how do you see the impact of that on Bonacle?
Yeah, so one of the most impactful aspects of the World Cup is basically building the infrastructure for Qatar. And we wanted to make sure that the infrastructure is built with accessibility in mind. This is the world's most accessible World Cup. We wanted to make sure that Qatar is the most accessible as well throughout the journey of the blind individual, whether it's from the school, university, workspaces, the public library, you name it. And I think that there is an interesting aspect or common factor in here. The World Cup, one of the most impactful aspect of it is basically showing the world our culture, heritage, and values in the Middle East, since you're getting millions from around the world and you want them to experience our culture. And this will narrow the gap between the world and the Middle East. That's exactly, Qatar is doing that through the passion for games, or basically for the football. That's exactly the strategy we're doing. We're basically utilizing the passion for games to narrow the gap between the society and the visually impaired and blind community. Throughout this tournament, we were very blessed that everyone and every gamer were basically putting down their game controller, their FIFAs, their PlayStation, and coming and starting the conversation with the blind community and asking interesting questions like, is the term blind fine? Can I use it? Or should I say visually impaired? Would that make you uncomfortable? How do you read Braille? Why is Arabic Braille left to right, not right to left? And that's exactly the conversation we want to have. And that's exactly the narrowing the gap is, again, that's exactly the main purpose of it. And that's one of the most important aspects for the World Cup as well.
Abu Abdurrahman, being with the Supreme Committee for the past 10 years, as I mentioned, it's about legacy is a big word, impact, setting the stage. So how do you see the impact of 2022 on the next terminates?
Well, in addition to the infrastructure legacy, as you said, I would say the main legacy or the real legacy would be those staff and human resources that the country and Supreme Committee has invested in. Mainly, if you can see the projects now being led and delivered by young local leaders and project managers. So this is, I would say, the real legacy. And through the interesting journey that we had with the pressure of the set timeline and deadline that we had, was a great experience that a lot of effort was put together from management, from the highest authorities in the country, and the trust that we got from senior management on us is really something that we are proud of. And to contribute to the national development is something that everyone would be, I would say, proud of being part of again.
This takes me to my last question to each one of the speakers here. So starting with Abu Abdurrahman and tapping back on the human capital development. So looking at your career history, Supreme Committee 10 years, obviously in the Supreme Committee career job was your first professional career experience. So graduate from Qatar University into the Supreme Committee, global project, national mega project. So how do you evaluate your preparation during university equipped you to play a role in such a mega project?
Well, Qatar, to start with, I'm proud of being a Qatar University graduate, in which Qatar University has played a great role even in developing my skills in terms of the educational and even personal skills that led me to be able to work within the environment of the Supreme Committee and working within projects such as the World Cup, which is again a national vision, and to be part of the nation's development, which is again everyone would be keen to be part of. And again, in terms of the journey, I started as an engineer, and then I went through an interesting journey with the training site project, and then moved to Ras Abu Aboud Stadium, which was the old name of Stadium 974. Moving forward with the project delivery, and then currently I'm the facility management director. So I went through, let's say, the org chart, starting as an engineer, as a fresh graduate, back 2012. And then as of today, as finishing up or as a director is a great achievement, I would say, personally. And the pressure and the trust, as I mentioned, is a great achievement that we had from management, which I believe will be again reflected on my career for any professional or next steps post event, which I'm looking forward to.
Abdelrazak, you had a different career path from the university on Bonacar right away, I think. So how did you evaluate your prep from university that equipped you to be able to build your company and to push such an innovative product?
I think the most important throughout my journey is basically the curiosity and eager to learn. When I started, as I mentioned, I didn't have an idea on how to get started or how to solve this. I didn't have a clear path. But I had that curiosity to figure out how to solve such a problem. And that was the main aspect. You're just graduating with a couple of tools out of the university, and that eager is what keeps you driving, that keeps driving you throughout your life. throughout the journey, I didn't only learn about the technical stuff, but actually you're talking about what is inclusion and what is disability and what is impairment. For example, no one is born with a disability. The word disability is relative. You could be born with an impairment, a visual impairment, a hearing impairment, a physical impairment, but you're not disabled unless you're in an inaccessible environment. If the steps in here are 1 meter high, guess how many of us is disabled? We're all disabled in here because the venue is inaccessible. It's not inclusive for us. That's exactly it was such an eye-opening. The journey was such an eye-opening in here. And I'm very excited because at the beginning of the month, I got a call from Qatar University again. They were like, could you stop by for an hour? And then they were like, you need to meet a student in here. And I met that student called Majid. He's a blind student committed to study computer science, to become a developer, and minoring in statistics. He's doing double major. Such a challenge because he needs to deal with diagrams and graphs and math and equations and a lot of challenges, but he's very determined. And he was like, yes, I know it's going to be hard, and I'm putting aside the number of years it's going to take, but I'm determined to do this. And I'm very happy that right as we're speaking, we've just started a project. I'm like, the whole company, the team is basically at your disposal, and let's actually build a platform to teach the blind kids coding using Barnacle. So since Barnacle is a platform, you'd be able to code and do simple tasks with Barnacle, like vibrating or changing the number or presenting text using Braille or using the buttons, just like Arduino, the way we teach our kids. So Barnacle could be that Arduino for the blind or anyone who wants to learn programming so they can solve their own problems later on.
Dr. Saud, you mentioned earlier when you had this interaction with the Supreme Committee, it was recognizing the value of knowledge within the academic institutions. So as a final takeaway, what is your reflection on how did the ecosystem and the environment empowered you to really scale up your solution to such a mega project?
The human capital is very important, and in UK there are like brands, and one of the brands for the best companies, when they say invest in people, they invest in people, not in equipment. I mean, you can always replace a room or a door or a table, but you cannot replace skilled human beings. And being in the university as a professor of mechanical engineering, and I see the students develop their way they come from a school, high secondary school, and all the way to graduation, and how they grow. I think I see marvelous journey for human mankind through each one of them, how they mature through their 4 years within the university, and part of that maturity, I will take a small part of that maturity. So the human capital is the most important capital. And the other day I've seen an interview, I think, with the Apple CEO, when he said, people mistakenly say we go to China because the man hour is cheap. And he said, no, we go to China because they have very well-trained engineers. They do precisely the molds that we want to do the molding of these phones up to the fraction of a millimeter. So they're highly skilled engineers. That's why they go to China. They don't go to China because of the cheap manpower. So your capital, well-trained workforce is your best assets in the ecosystem. I mean, imagine you have this idea of Barnacle, or we have our ambitious program of delivering the stadiums and the SC, but I don't have the human capital to deliver that. I don't have trained people like Al-Atwan and like Abdul Razak to deliver these. So education is very important. Having a very highly skilled human factor is very important for the whole ecosystem. And I think that's the black horse of the whole process.
Before I conclude the session, for today. I would like to open the floor for the audience if they have a question for the speakers.
Thank you, Naif, and thank you, the esteemed guest. I honestly don't have any questions. I just want to share a moment of gratitude. Honestly, I know it's very busy times. We are all excited, waiting for the kickoff of the amazing games and delivering legacy. Thank you, Naif, and the Ibtechar team, and thank you, guests. I know you are extremely busy. The fact that you took a chunk of your day and dedicated it to the innovation ecosystem says a lot about you. I was in awe listening to the depth of the perspective. Wallah al-azim. I've been in the innovation system for the past decade. This is what we need. This kind of conversation that will live beyond the games. And that's the actual legacy. It's the brains, it's the people, it's the depth of the know-how. And that's what we tried to do here at Ibtechar, bringing everyone as a moment to celebrate the human capital. I know this can be overseen because when you look at the Lusail Stadium or at the 974, it's Mohammed Al-Atwan that I see. When I go and attend the games and like it's 40 degrees out there and I'm actually putting on a light jacket, I remember Dr. Saud. When I see the accessibility.
Remember Tahi.
When I go and see all the accessibility and I know what Abdul Razak did with in terms of really bringing accessible data and information with the SC, that's kind of enablement that we are talking about. So we are so proud. I'm so proud. I'm in awe. And I learned so much, and it was really intriguing hearing your perspectives and the depth of the past decade doing some work. Please allow the applause for everyone. Wallah. Thank you. They earned it. Thank you so much.
My name is Koli. I work with the Qatar Tribune newspaper. It's been a fantastic show so far. My question will go for Mr. Mohammed. I would like to ask you a question about the 974 stadium. It's a wonderful stadium. It's beautiful. My confusion is, apart from the container, which is detachable, and you also said something about the long time from when the bid was won up until now gave the Supreme Committee an ample time to decide on what best to use. So my question is, was there any other option apart from a container that could have been demountable instead of the container that we have now?
Yeah, so during the brainstorming sessions and design workshops that we had with the designer, he proposed a few other components, mainly modular steel elements. Just to be honest, even in terms of whatever have been used for within this project, almost 80% of, or more than 80% of the used material can be recycled. However, because of FIFA requirement and the space required for certain areas, mainly VIP lounges, VVIP, hospitality, and changing rooms, that we couldn't fit within containers. We had to build them with drywall partitions, which are again some sort of recyclable material, which can be recycled and repurposed later on. And we had the corrugated sheets cladding just to mimic and to maintain the same look and feel of the industrial concept. So there were a few components or proposals from the designer in which we've decided to go with the containers because of the easy way of transporting them. And even we went to one of the leading fabrication yards in China, CIMC, in which the discussion started with 1,000 container, which is kind of a peanut for them. And then we added the scope of fit out even to the same fabricator or the same fabrication yard, which they didn't do, but it was an interesting and challenging project for them. So those containers were newly fabricated in China and fitted out. So we had a third party and quality check team based on China, and we had a few trips to China to do material selection, to do reporting and verify the progress as well, in which those containers were fully fitted out and fabricated off-site. And when they came to Doha, luckily before COVID and the pandemic that impacted the shipment, those containers were fully fitted, and we went through a kind of plug-and-play concept, as those containers were fully fabricated and ready just to be connected, and then to be connected to the main utilities in terms of power and water and drainage, and can be even standalone functions. So the three containers joined together to form a public, to form a toilet, can be moved somewhere else after the tournament if we decide not to go for sporting facilities, and use those three containers joined together to form a public toilet within a park or within a construction site. Those three containers joined together to form an office can be moved to a construction site as a site office. So this flexibility that we've seen on the containers were the main driving factor that we've concluded our workshops with the designer on selecting the shipping containers.
Hello, and thank you for these exciting stories, successful stories of local innovation. My question would be a little bit poetic, looking beyond the World Cup, that in 1 month will be history for Qatar. If you look at Qatar as a whole, how could Qatar win innovation as the next big event? What are the ingredients? I think we have got somehow answers to this question from this discussion that happened, but still, out of your experience, how could this be replicated as a Qatar success?
It's an ecosystem. So I'll tell you what pushed a lot of innovation is the blockade. So we used to get our detergents from neighboring countries, even milk and things like this. Then we have, especially in the industry, it's a supply chain. If your economy only depends on big companies, if these big companies fail, the whole economy fails. You need small to medium enterprises. That's why, you know, the new industrial area, it was marvelous. Facilities were there. So suddenly we had you know, factories. They can manufacture detergents. Another factories, they manufacture soap. Another factories, and then the supply chain will get into there. Once you have a supply chain for small to medium enterprises, then the innovation ecosystem will be healthier because your demand is there. But before, maybe if you want to manufacture something, you need to look to Alibaba or find from China or India a manufacturer. But now in Qatar, you have 3D printing facilities. You know, students going out from the university, graduating, but they're having an idea of their own company to have a 3D printing facility so the ecosystem is a culture. And it's been accelerated by some events. One of them is blockade, and it's been supported by the government in many initiatives. You know, from Qatar Development Bank, this is only one initiative, to many incubators that in the QSTP, Qatar Science and Technology Park, Qatar University, and again pushing. I mean, for me, I'm old generation. You know, I want to be an employer, having my salary at the end of the month. That's my security. But my students, they are trained differently. They want to be having their own ideas formalized into a company. They want to be the CEO of these companies. They want to be the next Elon Musk so that's really a healthy environment for a healthy economy, which a healthy economy should not only depend on big companies, a healthy economy more depending on a small to medium enterprises that they can then support the big companies.
Investing in people, not ideas. It's all, again, ideas are not very valuable without a proper team who is quite resilient to make it happen. And giving them the proper chance or opportunity to actually build something. And the idea will change and will pivot. Like at the beginning, we went through multiple iterations. When the tablet didn't work, we didn't fail. As a team, we didn't fail. We're actually taking a step towards success. That's one more step towards success. And then the glove, okay, 2 steps towards success. And then the stylus, 3 steps. We are getting closer to success. So giving people chance to actually keep trying and iterating and trying and things wouldn't work from the first time. That's obviously the case, but you want to invest in the people who would keep trying till they make it happen, and then you would have local ideas and local innovations coming from Qatar.
Well, just to add to the same question, so as I mentioned, mega events or sporting events are now being used as a tool or a catalyst which Qatar have used for its benefit. So we've invested a lot during the last couple of years, so the whole country was under construction, if I can say that. And again, with also projects that will be left over after the World Cup, which legacy was the core of the planning, let's say, stage, I believe that the tournament would have a great impact in a positive way, even to the economy, to the tourism, and change the misperception to what others had about the region and even to Qatar. So previously, if you were asked, where are you from, and you say Qatar, and no one would know where is Qatar, and we had to say it's next to Dubai. But now when you say Qatar, everyone would say, yeah, 2022 World Cup is being hosted there, and we should and we will be happy to be there. So again, it's a tool that Qatar have used for its benefit, and I think, as Dr. Saud mentioned, it's beyond even sports. We had fabrication yards established during the blockade and even before. So, for example, the seats for 5 of our venues were fabricated here in Qatar on one of the fabrication yard that was established specifically for the World Cup. And again, this is one of the legacy that we believe would be kept and will be used post-tournament.
If you guys would allow me, I would like to contribute to this specific question, and this is, with that, I'm going to conclude the session. And I think going back to the question and zoom out, I think there is a huge role when it comes to national mega project to foster and accelerate things. If we zoom into different particular stories, we can see each one has its own innovation process, which took years of iteration to reach where they reach today. And this gives us a reflection that the innovation process is just a continuous improvement process that needs to be keep on going and going. But even if we go one step deeper and we zoom in, looking into those individuals behind each project or behind each idea, there is long years of preparation to develop that human capacity who are able, with the right fitness, with the right mindset, with the right tools, to really maintain the innovation process to achieve what we have achieved today. So at the end, I would like to thank all the speakers for their valuable time. Mohammed Al-Atwan drove from his top management meeting to the event. Abdel Razak, Dr. Saud, the last 10 days we were trying to call him. He wasn't answering us, but alhamdulillah, he showed up. I know, and this shows how you guys are committed to this, to share your value and insight as well. But at the same time, we really value your presence. Thanks to everybody, and thank you.
حتى الابداع فيها من جراس روت لحد التكنولوجي. صحيح ما شاء الله.